Hey there, welcome to the Be Unmessable With podcast. I'm your host, Jocelyn Herman-Saccio, and today I have a very special guest. Her name is Cheri Tree, and she is a best-selling author, a professional keynote speaker, a world-renowned entrepreneur. She's the founder, chairman, and CEO of Codebreaker Technologies. She has clients in more than 100 countries all around the world. She's the creator. This is so fascinating. We're going to hear more about this during this episode, but she is the creator of the revolutionary BANK methodology, bank methodology, and the Codebreaker's personality coding technology, which is all designed to help business owners close more sales in less time, which I'm sure any business owners listening, that is like gold, and also at the same time improve their communication skills and their personal relationships. She's been invited to speak at Harvard, at the University of California, at Stanford, Google. I'm getting tired just reading this. It's exhausting how much she's done. She must be like 100, but I don't think so because she's younger than me. She's purpose driven and profit driven, which I love because it doesn't have to be either or. And she has a goal to create income, influence, and impact for everyone. Her mission is to connect and empower humanity by cracking the code of every human on the planet, creating one world, one language. I could cry as I read this, right? And Cheri insists on having fun, taking massive action. She plays to win. She enjoys her freedom. She travels the world and she helps people like you and me take it to the bank. So welcome, my chéri amour.
Ah, bonjour, bonjour. Hello,
Bonjour, ça va
everyone.
bien?
Ah, ah,
Okay.
I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us. And just I said a lot, but I'm sure I missed something. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and hello to all your listeners or viewers. It's exciting to be here, and iron sharpens iron. That's why I love working with amazing people like you. So, my story dates back to graduating from college and reading a very powerful book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And surely you've all heard of it. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of it, he talks about the difference between the poor, the broke, and the middle class, which I did not want to be, but that's where I came from. And the rich and the wealthy, which is where I wanted to be, right? So if anyone can relate, I was in the camp of I want to be over there.
Me, I relate, I
Me,
relate.
pick me, right? So one of the things, piece of advice he gave was if you want to be very successful in business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a millionaire, you need to be great in sales. And I thought, okay, so I followed his advice and I jumped in with both feet and I became a financial advisor. I liked the topic of money. I thought this is going to be great. And the model that I was working in was full commission. So there was no salary, no base, no draw, just like, eat what you kill, so to speak.
Yep.
And my first year, I crushed it. I made $700.
$700. That was like a 700 times increase from the year before, if you look at it that way.
It's just so funny, right? Because you get a 1099 tax form when you cross over 600. So I barely
that's right.
qualified to even pay taxes on it. And, it's pretty pathetic, but I was committed to my goals and to my dreams. And so for 5 years, I did the hustle and grind thing. And I really wanted to study how to get better. I became a student of the industry and I started to study every sales methodology I could get my hands on. So I read books, I listened to audio programs, I attended conferences, I hired coaches, I did all of it. And over that 5-year period, I got my income up from $700 to $72,000. And my company was like, yay, great job. Keep up the good work. And I'm full-time doing this. But the funny thing is, I didn't feel successful at all because I was $30,000 in credit card debt, renting an apartment, couldn't qualify for a home, and driving a salvage title BMW playing the fake it till you make it game. I mean, this car would spontaneously just randomly die. I could never park in front of my client's home for fear that I couldn't start my car when I left. I had to buy not only a set of jumper cables, but a battery pack because sometimes I would be stranded and there was no good Samaritan that could even give me a jump. I had to jump myself. Like it was very pathetic. And I'll never forget this moment. I was sitting across from a husband-wife couple telling them where they should put their entire portfolio, life savings, retirement accounts. with my firm. And they talked amongst themselves. And then, Jocelyn, you're never going to believe, they looked back at me and they said, well, Cheri, where do you put your money? And I was like, my eyes probably got real big because I was thinking to myself, what money? Like, I don't have any money. That's why I want your money. Like, you know,
do as I say,
give the
not as I
girl a
do.
break.
Yes.
And it reminded me of this other quote that I heard from Robert Kiyosaki, where he said, stop taking advice from people more messed up than you. So if you can imagine, I was a financial advisor that was totally broke.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm a hypocrite right now. And I don't even want to tell anybody what to do with their money until I have plenty of my own. So this is kind of where my journey, takes a left turn, because I had to take a few steps back. Something's definitely broken. I'm not sure whether or not it's me. Like, maybe I suck at this and I should just go back and get my job, or, is it the system that's broken? And what I discovered was that it wasn't me. It, in fact, was the system. And the system was programming people like me to fail by brainwashing me into believing one of the greatest lies ever told, which was that sales was a numbers game. If you've ever heard that before. And they told us that in order to get more yeses, you have to get more nos. And for 5 years, I bought into that lie. For 5 years, I hustled and grinded. And for 5 years, I burnt the candle at both ends, only just to spin my tail and never cross over that 6-figure income, So I woke up one day, and this was a turning point for me. And I said, that's actually the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because the truth is, in order to get more yeses, you have to get more yeses, not more nos.
Now that sounds so simple. However, when you're inside of a truth, like it's the reality, you just believe, even if it makes no sense, you believe it. I know I can relate, because when I was little, I decided you can't do your art as your career. And that was like the truth for me, just like you got to get more no's to get more yeses. It's just, you don't question it. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, look at all the people who do their art as their career. What do you mean you can't do your art as your career? There's plenty of people that do their art as their career. And the whole thing crumbles. And it's all those limiting beliefs that keep you in prison. So tell us now then what happened once you had
It's
this
so
epiphany.
important. I mean, first of all, I think what's important is that entrepreneurs have to learn how to think for themselves. And so my thought was, all right, how do I get a yes instead of a no? Is there a science to getting a yes? And my journey took me on this discovery path of realizing I was taking these different personality assessments, and every assessment was telling me more about who I was, but there was no assessment that could tell me who my buyer was. And the theory of these 4 personality types was that there's 4 different types of people on the planet, right? This dates all the way back to Hippocrates, the father of medicine. And he discovered that he could categorize the human race into 4 different groups. And he called that the theory of 4 temperaments, right? So when you fast forward to today's world, there's all these different personality assessments that have been created, like DISC or MBTI or, the Kierkegaard temperament disorder. I mean, you can literally figure out what animal you are, what astrology sign you are, what color you are, and so forth, right? So I was taking these assessments, but not one single one of these assessments ever made me more money. Not one of them ever helped me close more sales or get more yeses. But here was the big thought that changed my entire life. I said, well, if it's proven that there's 4 different types of people, I wonder if they make buying decisions differently. And I wonder if what makes one person say yes makes another person say no. And that was like,
boom.
Yeah. So I started to look for an assessment that could tell me not who I am, because no one ever cared. No customer ever asked me. No customer ever interrupted me and said, hey, Cheri, before you tell me your spiel about your financial planning services, what's your personality type? Nobody ever, ever, ever asked me that. But I remember thinking, should I know your personality type? And can I connect it to your buying behavior? Can I connect it to what triggers a yes or a no outcome? So it didn't exist in the marketplace. I decided I was going to build an experiment. So I built an experiment, and the concept was I basically had to reverse engineer the concept of personality science. And instead of making one based in psychology, like every other assessment model out there, I decided I was going to make one based in biology, spelled B-U-Y.
I love that.
Right? Which was the science of buying behavior. Because Jocelyn, I didn't care if the customer was introverted or extroverted. I cared about what triggers the yes or the no. Like, let's just be honest, right? I'm not there to date you. I'm there to,
Unless, that's a whole
unless,
other story. Okay, that's a whole other story.
that's another one.
How you met your wife. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
how I met my wife, and she's amazing, and I'm so glad I knew how to get a yes by then.
That's right, exactly. Came in handy.
So look, I have my book here. You can probably see it in the background, but this is the book I ended up writing. And the discovery that I made was this concept called BANK, which was an acronym, right? And this was the 4 types of buyers. So for all the listeners and viewers out there, the B in BANK stands for blueprint. That's going to be your type of customer that's very conservative, risk adverse, rule following, budget conscious, inside the box. Okay. And they have a very specific way of engaging with you. And if you go outside the box, you're going to lose the deal, right? The A in BANK is action. That's the mover, shaker, millionaire maker, get things done, play really big. The sky's the limit. Rules don't apply to me, right? So very outside the box. What works for the blueprint does not work for the action, and vice versa. We can already see the polarity in those 2 codes. The N in BANK stands for nurturing, and that's going to be the person that you're engaging with. It's all about the cause, the crusade, the mission, the movement, not the money. The money actually doesn't motivate them. Matter of fact, it can deter them. And so this one is looking for a very genuine, authentic, real connection with you. And then the K in BANK stands for knowledge. And that's the person that says, look, I don't really trust or believe anything you had to say unless you can back it up. So give me the science, the data, the facts, the figures, the scientific white papers, the case studies, and so forth. I need to do my due diligence and research, and I will let you know if what you're saying is true. So that's
I somehow feel like that is a big one for me. Although I did the assessment, and I think I was like NAKB or something like that. I can't remember.
well,
but
and
the
actually,
K resonates.
that's the point. Is what I discovered was that every person out there was not just one of these 4. They're actually a combination of all 4, and that's what I call their BANK code, right? So if you think of a bank code like a PIN code, when you go put your debit card into an ATM machine, it wants you to enter a 4-digit PIN code in the exact right sequence if you want your money to come out. Well, what I found with my customers was that they had a 4-digit bank code. And if I could figure out what that sequence was, a yes would come out. And once the yes came out, the money always followed. So get this, and I'll finish my story, and then we can.
No. This is so fascinating. We could do a 10-part series on this.
Yeah, I mean, it really is fascinating because it works. So in 1 year, using this as an experiment and basically figuring out what my client's bank code was, and I came up with a really cool hack to do that in less than 90 seconds. My income went from $72,000 to over $500,000 in 1 year. So a 7x increase. And the best part was I went from working 60 to 80 hours a week down to 20 to 30. So 7 times the income in 1/3 the time, right? That's like, don't mess with me at this point, because at this point, it's like, oh my gosh, I just discovered one of the greatest sales hacks on the planet.
I mean, that's like a 20x increase if you really do the math, although I didn't, so it might be even more, but I think it's like a 20x or 21x.
I mean, it was huge. And then over a 3-year period, I crossed over that $1 million mark. I remember I was 33 years old and making over $1 million a year for the first time in my life. And it was a game changer, right? It was a game changer. So at that point, I became super committed, not just to the bank methodology, but to teaching it to other people, because I fell in love with every other person like me that was struggling but hustling. They had big goals and dreams. They had work ethic. They had discipline. They just didn't know what to do. There was like a missing link somewhere.
It's like, yeah, how do you crack the code? And I deal with this all the time with entrepreneurs and founders who are in the business. I mean, every business has sales associated with it in terms of, acquiring new clients or selling products or whatever it is. And that is the one area that messes with most companies because it's hit or miss. They're just throwing spaghetti against the wall, hoping they find something that sticks, that works, but then it doesn't work all the time. So then it's kind of not reliable, but then they try something else, and it's very experimental. It's not reliable. And what I love about what you've created is it's something that is implementable and reliable. And when you have something that's implementable and reliable, it's sustainable. So you can create a system that is sustainable, and it doesn't require you.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise you get so beat up in sales because of playing the numbers game, right? And that was one of the big secrets I discovered. Sales is not a numbers game, it's a people game. So there's a lot of people who hate sales, resist sales, don't want to be affiliated or associated with being in sales. I'm a consultant. I'm not in sales. I mean, we're all in sales. Sales equals influence, right? So replace the word sales with influence. And if people are building businesses and they have a product, a service that can make their customer's life better, then what I discovered was that the only failure was the failure to close the sale, because your customer doesn't get the benefit of your products and services and you don't get paid, right?
Yeah.
So let's
So it's
just
a
start with that, right?
lose
Let's get
situation.
mentally tough.
Yeah.
But mental toughness isn't enough. And this is where I think so many people go wrong. Like, if you really want to be unmessable withness, you picked a really good word,
I,
right? Tongue
I
twister.
know. It
But
was easy to trademark because nobody's using it because they
yeah,
can't even say it.
I'm
So
unmessable with. So, mindset is very important, but it's not the only piece of the formula. So I teach mindset plus skill set plus tool set equals jet set,
love it.
right? You need to have more than just mindset to win in business. And this is where we as entrepreneurs got to like peel off the blinders a little bit, not be so ignorant, start thinking for ourselves and discovering like there are better ways. And there are hacks out there to help you collapse time, which was a very, very big deal.
I love it. I love it so much. And then, if you think about the being unmessable with, part of that is people think, oh, well, it's just being tough, or it's just like not letting people get to you. And that's not really what I mean by it. What I mean by it is being somebody who doesn't have to have perfect circumstances to be able to fulfill on their vision and dream. Like they're able to stay in that space of vision or creation versus the space of reacting to what's happening or what's not happening, which is a lot of what people react to. Oh, I'm not making the numbers, or I'm not, whatever's not happening. He's not calling me back, whatever that is. So, how did, if you look in your life, you've had so many really interesting things happen to you, but I know about, some of the challenges that you've encountered. So, what's like one of the biggest challenges you've ever encountered that you were able to not go down for the count, not stay in that space of reaction and survival, but rise above it and transcend to being unmessable with?
Yeah, I think, I think it's a great theme. Adversity strikes. I love the song, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger. And before I even tell you my story, because man, I got knocked down really, really hard, and I'll share that with you. I heard this analogy once, and I always resonated with it. And I think it was one of those stories that just sticks with you. And that is like, when you have a chicken who lays an egg and they have a little baby chick that's inside the egg getting ready to hatch. If you're like, oh, look at that poor little baby chick, he's struggling to get out, let me crack open the shell for him and make it easy on him. The truth is that's likely what's going to lead to his death. Yeah. Because the reality is that little baby chick has to become unmessable with, and he has to peck his way out of his own shell. Because the very act of doing that develops the internal strength and character for that little guy to survive in the real world. And so I think the theme and why I wanted to be on your podcast is because we as humans, we need to develop that too, right?
I'm with you.
And that's the formula. Like, you need to have the mindset, and then you need to have some skill sets and tool sets and things that go with you. But when adversity strikes and you get knocked down, like the first phase of adversity striking with me was this whole sales thing of just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to starve to death and bankrupt myself if I can't figure this out. I had to figure it out. So figure it out, listeners. Like, you've got to figure it out. You got to be stronger than what life is presenting you. You got to think your way outside of sometimes your pickle. And then what happened for me is as I started making millions of dollars with my bank thing, I was a sales rep for another company. And it was weird because so many people wanted to come start learning the bank system. And I was getting asked to speak and teach it to all these different sales teams, originally starting inside my own company. And then the company owners pulled me aside and said, hey, Cheri, like, number one, congratulations on beating every record in our company ever. You're our number one producer and earner. Great job. And by the way, your peers are getting jealous in other sales territories because their sales leaders want to come to your training events instead of theirs. And so we're going to just respectfully ask that you not train your bank system to anyone else.
Okay,
And
that's
I was like,
insane. Why wouldn't they want you to train it to
that's what I
everybody
said.
else? That makes no sense.
I was like, aren't we all on the same team? Like, this isn't the Cheri Tree show. I'm trying to like, a rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
So I felt like I got myself into a moral conflict at this point with, you know, am I here more to be self-serving? My income was approaching $2 million a year, and I could have just shut up and been like, all right. Or am I more here for what's ethically and morally right and my commitment to helping the little guy? Because I was the little guy for a long time, and I was a little guy who almost didn't make it. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to resign. I cannot work for a company at this point that I no longer believe in the leadership or their mindsets. And so I choose
it was like an integrity issue for you.
Yeah, it was an integrity issue.
Yeah.
And no matter how good you are in sales, if there's an integrity issue, I can't sell a thing.
No,
I just can't.
No.
So I resigned and I decided I'm going to go build my own company. I'm going to build a training company where I can teach this bank philosophy. But when I resigned, you know, and this is unfortunately what bullies do with low emotional intelligence, is they decided to sue me when I left. They didn't know what I was going to do, but they were so scared that I was going to go build a competing company. So they sued me on non-compete and non-solicitation, which also meant I could not talk to any customer or any sales team member in that organization, even if they were my customers and sales teams that I built myself. Couldn't talk to any of them because they threatened their termination and lawsuits if they talked to me too. So this is where, the unmessable with story really goes to the next level for me because it was the year 2008. All right. I was living in a $2 million home. I had Mercedes and Range Rovers, and I had my home in Hawaii. Like, I was living the dream. And when I resigned, number one, my income went to zero overnight. I didn't sell my book of business just out of principle. I just walked away from my income and surrendered it to the company. Number two, I had about $8 million in real estate holdings because I was a rich dad, poor dad believer, right? So I was investing a lot of my income into real estate property. Well, 2008 was when the market was collapsing. And my cash flow on my real estate went to negative $65,000 a month. None of my tenants.
Not an ideal circumstance. Yes.
No,
exactly.
And so zero income, negative $65,000. All my credit lines got turned off because the banks were freaking out.
Yeah.
And I had no money, no credit, no income, and now negative cash flow. And now I was in a pickle. And oh, by the way, I had to invest $250,000 in legal retainer fees to fight
for the lawsuits. Yep.
Yeah, because the unmessableness was, I'm not going to let you come sue me and try to wipe me out. I'm going to escalate this lawsuit from state court to federal court, which I did. And I'm going to Aaron Brockovich this son of a bitch because, you're not going to bully me. And I'm going to fight for me, and I'm going to fight for the little guy. So I did. And in the process of doing so, what was also simultaneously happening, because I was in a non-compete, I couldn't start up a new business until I could win the lawsuit to defend myself.
Because non-competes, for anybody listening, non-competes are unenforceable. They are an illegal term in a contract. So if anybody is dealing with the fear of being sued for a non-compete, you need to know that is not an enforceable thing in the United States of America.
Yeah. And sadly, I had to prove it in my lawsuit. Anyway, that's what they did to try to clip my wings. But remember, I was the little thing that hatched out of that eggshell. So I came out with
your beak was strong because
my beak was strong.
You tipped yourself out of that thing.
That's right. And let's see. So all of my real estate, I had furniture and, stuff in these homes. I put it all in 5 different storage units, with public storage. And they started to call me saying, Cheri, your stuff's about to go to auction if we don't receive the payment. And I mean, I'm financially tapped. I have got no money, no income, no ability to earn money. I bled out of all of my savings. My investment portfolio's upside down. I got nothing. And I remember I said, because this is like the little baby chick, right? Unmessable with. I went and found an industrial sized storage unit, 1,600 square feet in Southern California, Orange County area, just outside Newport Beach. Big warehouse, rolling up door. And that could fit all of my stuff for about, probably 60% of what I was spending in storage unit fees. I could put it in this warehouse. And when I was in the warehouse checking out the space, right at the back of it was a tiny little set of steps that went up to this wooden loft. And I got an idea. And this is where, as entrepreneurs, like, you've got to think outside the box.
I call it, you got to MacGyver it. You got to be like MacGyver in life.
Yeah. So I got an idea because I no longer had my $2 million home with my own elevator, my own 600 bottle wine cellar, my own wet bar. Like, I didn't have that anymore. I decided I'm going to move in. I was staying on a friend's couch, like total freaking nightmare. Millionaire to zero air.
Zero air.
Yeah. I moved in to the storage unit, and get this, the storage unit didn't have any running water, AKA no bath, no toilet. But I got resourceful. I used to be a whitewater rafting guide back in college. And so I worked at REI headquarters back in the day. So like the camping thing, I went to the camp store, got a 5-gallon bucket called a luggable loo. And I made that my toilet for 18 months. I lived in that storage unit. And I went to the gym and got a membership so I could shower. I barely could work out because my brain was I wasn't in that mental space. But I could shower once every 1, 2, 3, or sometimes 4 days before I got to go shower next. And I didn't have any cars. I surrendered all my cars back to the bank. All my properties went back to the bank. I had a tow truck looking for my last and final car. And I just couldn't take the anxiety anymore. I gave it back. And then I went on Craigslist and found a Range Rover because I still like my brand Range Rover. Only it was a really freaking old one, $3,500. It barely worked. I called it Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I mean, I would be mortified of red lights because it would take so long. You could hear this chain ratcheting when I would push the accelerator like it was slipping. It would barely go, and cars would be honking behind me. And I mean, like, I pulled over one time. My friend in a parking garage waved hi. I went to unroll my window, and the whole window just dropped into the door, like just broke and disappeared. The glass gone.
It's like
and one time my friend was taking a ride with me, and the seatbelt just unpopped and zipped all the way back. And I thought, oh my God, but here's the point of the story. It was in this storage unit where I built the first prototype of bank and turned it into a product instead of just an idea. And that's where everything started to transform for me. The best thing that ever happened was losing all my money.
Yes.
Because I lost my attachment to money and to material possessions, and I grew my attachment to people and to my purpose. And so, kind of like the caterpillar to the butterfly, that was such an important moment for me of transformation internally, that the Cheri Tree that exited on the other side of that loss became so much stronger and so much bigger and so much more powerful but humble, that I would never undo that story. So that's a little bit of my,
a perfect example of being unmessable within the face of any circumstance. It's like, rising from the ashes. And, for those of you listening, you don't have to go through a bankruptcy and losing everything to be able to transform what you're focused on and start to detach from your attachment to things like money. And we're not saying don't make money, because, Cheri's mission is very profit and purpose driven, but to reconnect with people and purpose, because that will then bring the profits. If your eye is on the people, and if your eye is on the purpose, profits fall into line very naturally. At least I found that. What have you discovered around that?
It's so true. Like, you can't just be chasing money for the sake of making money. And, and there's a proverb out there that says money doesn't buy you happiness. And I say, that's another lie. That's a very big fat lie. Money buys me enormous amounts of happiness, and money isn't everything. It's only one form of wealth. So let's not let's not buy into all these dumb lies, and let's keep our perspective too, right? We need more than money to be truly happy.
Yes,
I
because
get it.
you and I have both worked with people that have a lot of money, but they're not satisfied because
Right.
they have a never enough mentality, or because they aren't balancing their life with their emotional and spiritual and relationship well-being. So
Yes.
well-being is bigger than your physical body, and it's bigger than your
Totally.
bank account. So
Totally.
if you can create a life where you're tending to all the trees that are bearing the fruit, then you have a, I don't know, this analogy is falling apart. I was like, a garden full of
No.
fruit, I guess,
Yeah, I mean, Esther and I, my wife, we run a really high-end mastermind for multiple 6, 7, 8-figure people, and it's around living your iconic life and creating wealth in 8 different categories. And you started to name some of the categories that we really believe in. But money is a key piece of it,
It
because
is.
if someone doesn't master the money game and the ability to earn the money, then they usually never transition their effort and energy to focusing on other parts too. They just stay focused on the money because they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they're caught in what Robert Kiyosaki talks about as the rat race, right? Trading time for dollars. And
And
so
it's
going
really
back
a
to your question,
survival
yeah,
mode. And when you're
survival.
in survival mode about anything, so, whether you're in survival mode about your health or money, you can't create freely. You don't have the space to look up and out at your vision and fulfill on your dreams.
Yeah. And it's a tough place. So that goes back to your question of people need to get, and Simon Sinek wrote the book, right? Start with why. You got to get really aligned with why you're here. What is your purpose? What can you do to impact humanity? And actually, I want to talk on this because I learned something from my mentor, Robin Sharma, who is a prolific author on leadership and personal development. He's our personal coach and mentor for Esther and I. And he talked in one of his modules I was listening to about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where food, clothing, water, shelter is like the primal human need, and then it ascends from there. Well, the top of that pyramid has always been something called self-actualization. Self-actualization is where we become the very best versions of ourselves. We become the most optimized in all the dimensions of our life, right? Like we chiseled the statue of David for our own life, right? But before Maslow died, he revealed that there was actually a level above that. The true pinnacle was not self-actualization. That was a stepping stone to what he called self-transcendence. And self-transcendence is where your life now shifts from being about you focused to being humanity focused, where the dedication of the effort and energy of your life is now for the betterment of humanity, to create impact for human beings. And that's where you are, Jocelyn, right? That's what you are doing in your life. You've dedicated 30 years of your entire career to lifting up humanity and giving them a better perspective, a better place, a better footing for them to be able to live and create the life that they want to live. And that is the ultimate destination. But to get there, you have to be able to ascend through these levels and master each one of them almost like a video game to unlock that top one.
I love that analogy because, oftentimes what I talk about with people is, okay, where do you want to level up? And it really is about leveling up, because what messes with people are all those levels along the way. So it's the self doubt, or worrying about what people think, or, a scarcity mentality, or limiting beliefs. All those things exist over here at the level of individual.
Yeah.
When you can dismantle those things, you're free. There, in fact, there is no you. That's what I mean, people can't quite get that until they experience, but it's like you disappear. And anybody who's ever, engaged with art or sports, that feeling of being in the zone, that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Like
Yeah.
being in the zone in life where there is no you, there's just the difference you're making, the impact you're having. And that is when truly people discover for themselves true satisfaction, not getting somewhere someday to make this amount, or, have the house and wherever. I mean, it's not about that. It's about who are you being right now? What are you bringing to life right now? And it's, you speak my language. You are preaching to the choir. Everything you're saying is so aligned with what my life has been about, for many decades. So I'm just thrilled that you're doing what you're doing to harmonize with, the mission that I have as well.
Well, and I think there's one really important distinction, and that is like someone could be like, all right, I'm just going to dedicate my life to being a humanitarian. I want to give everything away. I'm going to sell all my possessions and I'm going to go serve humanity for the rest of my life. On one hand, that's incredibly noble. Like, wow, Mother Teresa, amazing. But I think people are skipping a really important step on this self-actualization, that we actually owe it to ourselves to also become the best versions of ourselves, and mastering the pieces of us, like mastering money, mastering relationships, mastering, these other dimensions, and not just saying, well, like, it's not important for me, but I'm going to go serve other people. I think the key is to bring the best of both, the yin and the yang together. And
Absolutely, because if you can't be the change you wish to see,
yes,
we're going to go to
exactly.
all the people from India that are obviously no. But I always say to people, you don't have to move to India and go, give up everything and go, serve people necessarily, unless that floats your boat. Go do it. You could be the Gandhi of your family. You can be the Gandhi of your community, of your industry, of whatever it is. So it's like whatever you want to make a difference in, it's going to take all those levels to have a world that works
Yep.
for everyone. So
Yep.
it doesn't really matter what people take on. They don't have to be some altruistic sort of selfless. No, it's selfish in a way to be able to serve your family or community because it serves you. It nurtures your heart. It's not like burning out because you're giving so much to other people. That's a different mentality. It's like thinking of yourself as a thing, and there's this world of things, and you want to give to those things, but then you run out of gas yourself. No, you're not a thing. You're a space in which all things show up. So now what kind of space do you want to be? Do you want to be a space of abundance and nurturing and empowerment, or do you want to be a space of being burnt out and sacrificial? And it's a spatial conversation. Most people don't really think of themselves that way. They think of themselves as a thing. I'll feed my thing, you feed your thing, and hopefully we'll both survive.
Yeah, I mean, Les Brown, great motivational speaker. When he gets up there and he says you have greatness inside of you, I really believe that. And if I can go back to the code, these are the cards I created in the bank code, and I think God is so good because He put all four parts in every human being. So we literally have infinite possibility, because you can step into your blueprint self and you can like get your shit together. You can get dialed in. You can build a plan and you can implement things, and you can get out there and you can take massive action. You can light a fire under your butt. You can get off the couch and you can go make big things happen. And you have a heart inside of you, right? Like, you have the ability to love self, love other people, love your customers, like, be passionate. And He put a brain inside of you so that you can think and create some critical thinking for yourself. And don't just believe everything you hear, especially if it's coming from the media or our government, or, I better not go there, but you know what I mean? Like, you better have so you have all four parts inside of you. And that's like an ingredient formula for incredible, unlimited possibility. Like, if you really want to be unmessable withness, you've got to access all four parts of you so that you can bring that to your life, to your workspace, to the world, and show up, in these four dimensions. And I think that's,
That's a game worth playing. That's what I
yeah,
say
that's a
about it,
game worth playing. Yeah.
And is there anything that I can support you with, or anything you're looking to create next?
Well, you have a lot of experience, and I wish, first of all, I went through the Landmark Forum, and I wish that you were my instructor, right? But I had an amazing experience, and I actually encourage people to go. I know that's part of your past and not what you're doing today, but
No, but I encourage people to go too. It was what made the biggest difference in my life. I did the EST training when I was 11. So that's
which still blows my mind.
46
We have a little
years.
almost 4-year-old son, and we're going to raise him in this incredible personal development realm. It'll be exciting to see who he becomes, because I'm sure your parents are very proud of watching who you became. right?
It's all
And are
because of
still
them,
becoming.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is definitely. My mother was the first one to participate in transformation. And at the time, my parents were separated because my father had had, numerous affairs, but the most recent one was with Elizabeth Taylor. So it was kind of like a big public thing. They got separated. She did the S training and told him, I'm moving. We were in LA. She said, I'm moving back to New York with the kids. He said, no, you can't. He was kind of a bully at that time in his life. He's not anymore, but she said, well, I'm going. And he said, well, you have to get a job. You have to get an apartment under $600 in the PS6 school district. And if you don't get those three things, you can't take the kids. So she said, fine, I'll be gone. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. I'll be back. She came back. She had gotten all three things handled. He was in shock. I was like, who is this person? She was the original unmessable with model. And then a year later, he did it and they got back together and they've been together 65 years. They're 91 and 93 this year. And, it's like a miracle. So having transformation in your family is the biggest gift that you could give your children, your siblings, your cousins. So anybody listening, if you have not engaged with transformative workshops, do it. And
Yes.
Landmark's just one methodology. I happen to love Landmark, but there's a bazillion others. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Oh,
yeah,
so
so
what
back
a
to what you're
beautiful story.
creating.
Like, wow. And this is why I think anybody who's been through transformation work is so addicted to it and encouraging of it because of, like, when you go from caterpillar to butterfly or from coal to diamond, you can never undo that process. You can never go back. A butterfly can never become a caterpillar. A diamond can never go back to coal. And, like, talk about becoming a diamond and unmessable with, you can't crush that diamond anymore. You can crush coal, but that's the only way to become a diamond. You've got to get
Exactly.
crushed. So,
It's true. It's
yeah.
true.
So you either going to turn to dust particles or you're going to transform into freaking a diamond. And, like, wow. So, yeah, let me ask, what is the one piece of advice in all of the years of coaching amazing human beings? Every one of us has some form of adversity strike. I mean, my wife
Always.
got ran over by two motorcycles riding her bike. She died twice. They said she's never going to walk again. She was in a wheelchair. Today she's like the most incredible, athletic, beautiful, completely capable person that can run and walk faster than me. And, like, what would you say is the big difference? What advice would you give someone when they're facing that type of adversity? How do you guide someone or encourage them to go from, instead of dust, to diamonds?
I always start with what's their vision. So it's like you said purpose, but for me, I start with their dream or their vision. It's like no matter what you're dealing with, there's something that you either created when you were little or you have some vision for in the future. And I can get at it both ways with people. And I just ask them, okay, so what is it you really, really, really want? What do you really want? Like if you didn't have to deal with this thing that you're dealing with, what would you want? If you were dead, what would you want to leave the planet, like as your legacy? And the minute somebody gets connected to that dream source, I call it, something gets awakened in them where they realize it isn't about the circumstances. So honor is a big thing for me. That's one of, where I come from, like my dream source, my vision is honor. And whenever I have something happen, like in business where somebody violates their contract with me or tries to break it or whatever, immediately I react and I think, oh, this is a pain in the butt and, how dare they? And I have all my evidence for why they're an idiot and da da da. But then I immediately switch over to, okay, how am I going to honor them, me, our agreement, the law, whatever it is, right? So it's like, how am I going to bring honor to this situation? And I always have a say over who I be in the face of a circumstance. So, like with health challenges like that, my mother recently had emergency surgery. She's 93 years old. I mean, it was pretty scary, to go under anesthesia and all that kind of stuff. I have complete say over how I respond to that situation. I don't have say over the circumstances. So when people are dealing with difficult circumstances, the first question is what's their vision? And then, okay, so what action can you take to fulfill on that vision right now? Not someday when this is over, but right now, how can you bring communication, connection, honor, whatever it is that you value and have a vision for? So that would be where I would start with people.
It's such good advice. It's funny. It inspired me. Like, I'm looking at the back of these bank cards and this is our mantra: make people matter. Right. So
And you could do that at
Yeah.
Starbucks, or you could do it in a corporate setting, or you could do it online and you could do it in a keynote, but you don't have to wait till you're booked on a keynote to make people matter.
Yeah. It's every day. It's every day.
Exactly. You could make your son matter in that
Yep.
moment, you know? So
Yep.
it's like, it really is, how do you live your dream, not chase it? That's
Yep.
where I come from. It's like, how do you live it right now? Not someday, not later, not tomorrow, but now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now's the only time. One of my favorite quotes, it says, now is the time to make your faith larger than your fear and your dreams bigger than your doubts.
Oh,
Right.
I love
So
that. I
yeah, I
love that.
love
I
that
had
too.
posted something about, I can't remember what it was, but yesterday somebody commented on my Facebook or Instagram, whatever it was, and they said, "Well, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now." I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, that's the same is true for investing in Microsoft.
Yeah.
Best
Yeah.
time was 20 years ago, but the next best time is right now." So just finally, I know you have a gift for our listeners, so I just want, or watchers, I don't even know, our viewers. What would you like to give them?
Well, the gift that I want to give is, like, first of all, understanding of self. I want to allow every one of your listener viewers the chance first, like, I want to give you a free copy of this book. So it's a
Amazing.
two-part free gift that I want to give. One is I want to give you the gift to crack your code and know what your own personality type is through the lens of bank.
Mm.
And I've created a little $99 report. It's extremely insightful and valuable, and you get it totally for free. So when you go to the link that you get to share
I'll put it in the
here
show
with
notes.
the podcast, go click on that link, and then click on step 1, which is crack your code. And it's going to take you less than 90 seconds. It's actually a digital version of these bank cards where you're going to drag and drop them into the sequence of most like you, most important to you, to least like you, least important to you. For example, my bank code is action first. You may have felt that just even looking at this jacket that looks like I'm driving a Ducati. I got it in Italy for my birthday, and I do own a Ducati. I'm nurturing second. So I'm a go getter, but my heart is driving me. This is why I want to impact humanity and make people matter, right? And then I'm knowledge third. So that's the third part of my bank code. And I'm blueprint last, right? So my bank code is ANKB. And each one of you get to determine what that bank code is. And there's no right or wrong. But the report is going to be very valuable because I think it's insightful for self. And we're going to give you some tips on how to engage differently with different codes of the people in your life, right? So your spouse or a business partner or a customer or your children. That's part 1. Part 2 is when you crack your code. If you would like a free copy of my book, you can always go to Amazon and buy it. And sometimes the prices are real jacked up because people hijack the inventory and then sell it for crazy prices. Gotta love people. But you can get a free digital copy of my book. And the only catch is that I'm going to ask you to watch a 15-minute video about bank so that you can see how bank can impact not just in the world of sales and business, but communication, relationships like dating, parenting, marriage, emotional intelligence, and leadership. And those are kind of the areas that bank has significant impact and moving the needle. So you can go get a free copy of my book. Once you watch the video, you can just add it to your shopping cart. And then there's one more option if you want to experiment around with our tools and technology. You want to crack codes, or we've developed cutting edge artificial intelligence that can guess and predict people's bank codes and guide you on how to interact with humans differently based on knowing that bank code through our AI. You can do a 14-day trial for $1. So I want to
Amazing.
give you that because for me, what bank does is it creates, and I think actually Les Brown, he gave a really powerful quote endorsement for the book. And here's what he said. He said, it's a game changer for every entrepreneur and sales professional. This system will strengthen your confidence. Like, people need to have more confidence. Number 2, expand your selling skills. You don't have to be a salesperson to be really good with people. And number 3, dramatically increase your income, which goes back to helping people earn what they need to earn to not just retire financially independent, but have a shot at the 1% wealthy. Because when you have money to do what you're here to do in life, and money isn't the thing that stops you, you can you can access a whole nother part of you and tap into a purpose that only exponentially expands when money is not the thing stopping you. So I want to help you with that piece of it. That's the financial advisor part of me. Have
Yes.
plenty of money. Go become a multi-millionaire, and then go live your life purpose and go bless and impact humanity, the reason why you're here in the first place. So,
I love it. I love it. So it's profit driven and purpose driven and
yep.
people driven. So it's the
Yep.
three P's, the triple
A three
P.
P's. That's good.
Three P's. I love it. I love it so much. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll have all the links in the show notes. And I just appreciate what you're doing. And I love that you created this out of your own experience, not a hole you saw in the marketplace, but a hole you saw in your experience, so that
Yeah.
it's personal, but it's not personal. It impacts, humanity, and it's very personal to you. So thank you for taking what makes a difference for you and having it make a difference for the many.
Well, it's an honor, and it was a gift, and that was me pecking my way out of my own shell. So to go back to your theme, like, adopt a mindset of unmessable with,
Yeah.
because when you do that, and you connect to the divine in you and why you're here, like, you are here for a reason. God put you here, and your circumstances are here to lift you, not to crush you. And when life
Yes.
does crush you, because adversity will strike, that's part of the contract of life, is turn yourself, instead of to dust, turn yourself into a diamond and watch what becomes possible. And like,
I
when
love it.
when
I
you
say that
begin to soar, like, this is the unstoppable part of.
it's the magic part of creation. But I like to say to people, there's nothing in your way. There's only things on your way. So
Yep.
now what's the next thing on your way to
Yep.
whatever you're creating? So that's beautiful. And for those of you listening, thank you for joining us. And if anything resonated with you, if you got value, please rate and review this episode down below or wherever next to us or wherever it is on your screen, and share it with people in your life that you think it could make a difference for, because that's all we want to do, is make the difference for people and give them the tools to be unmessable with and live the life of their dreams. So we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Be Unmessable with the podcast. And I am so happy that you spent some time with us. And I want to make sure that every time you spend time with us, you get value. So I want to offer you a free workshop on resilience and unmessable withness. So if you click below, Dr. Kathy Connor and I put together this workshop, and it's free, and it'll give you a world around the difference between resilience and being unmessable with, not only from my perspective, but from a neuroscientist's perspective. So, those of you that love that world of neuroscience, click below and get the workshop for free. See you on the next episode.